Today I want to really dive into and share with you guys the top mindset shifts, or you could think of this as like top understandings that have really genuinely made a difference in my life. And when I was thinking about these things, I really wanted to hone in and genuinely share the ones that truly made a difference. Because I think that a lot of people nowadays are talking about different things that have changed their lives and habits, practices, green juice, making their bed, whatever it is. I do think that sometimes these things might be like hyped up a little bit, especially when they're trendy or especially when they're being commercialized, whatever it is, if there's money to be made. That is not what I want to share today. Hey friends, so welcome back. My name is Danielle, and on this channel we talk all things spirituality, personal growth, wellness, and so much more. So if that sounds like a good time to you, please do subscribe. It helps me so much, and I share new videos like this every single week. So today we are talking about the mindset shifts, the understandings that I believe have truly made the biggest difference in my life and have really supported me across all aspects, across all levels of my health and well-being. So mental health, emotional, spiritual, and even physical, because I really do believe that everything is connected. So even if these are not necessarily physical practices, I definitely think that they have supported me just across all levels of my health and healing. By the way, these are in no particular order. It is just me sharing as they come. So if you would like to hear the mindset shifts that have really made the biggest difference in my life, then let's go ahead and get into it. The first mindset shift that has really made a profound difference for me in my life throughout my journey is the concept that I am not my thoughts. This is something that was really first presented to me when I kind of started to get into my spiritual practice, my meditation practice, yoga. For those of you who do not know, I lived for about a year and a half at a yoga retreat center and community in Australia. This is kind of when my spiritual journey really began. And so through yoga, through meditation, I started to come into this awareness of I am not my thoughts. What I am hearing, what I am saying to myself is not me. It is just stories. It is just old belief systems, old patterns, old conditioning. That is something that has allowed me a state of awareness to really be more in tune with who I really am and what is just old conditioning and old stories. And that has made certain circumstances a lot easier. When we can recognize that all of the thoughts that are popping up in our head are not necessarily us. Sometimes it's this inner critic, sometimes it's fear, sometimes it's, old judgments, and sometimes it's other people, whether it is your parents or your culture or society. The voice that is popping into your head is not always you. So the negativity is not always you. The fear is not always you. And we do not always have to listen to, and we do not always have to believe those thoughts. And that makes a really big difference as well. And so having that kind of awareness to really just be the witness of these thoughts and be the observer, but not identify with the thoughts, not identify with the stories, because that's really the biggest difference. Like, we are human, the thoughts are gonna happen. It's not about getting rid of the thoughts. And I think this is a really big misconception in things like meditation, right? Is that we should be able to just sit and meditate and not have any thoughts and just be in this state of peace, but that's not what it's about. And sometimes that's just not even achievable, and it's also not the point. The point is to see and be witness to the thoughts and allow them to pass and allow them to be what they are and just observe and not create stories. Because it is the stories, it is the identification that actually creates the suffering, creates the negative emotion or the pain or whatever that is. I will give you a little bit of an example here. For those of you who do not know, I worked at an ayahuasca retreat in Peru last year, 2022. I can't remember what year it is. For me, personally, one of my most challenging journeys with ayahuasca was essentially me really diving into and being in the experience of my own personal hell. And that might sound quite dramatic, but it is as close as I can come to the description of what this experience was just purely my own version of hell. And it was this loop of all of the worst thoughts and stories and emotions that I had ever experienced, and my deepest fears, my deepest feelings of disconnection and loneliness and doubt, all at once, amplified, to the highest degree. And I believed that I was stuck in it. My mind was telling me that I was stuck in the medicine, that I was never going to get out, that I was in this space of isolation and loneliness forever. And that was my new reality. And because of the fear, it just amplified everything. And I went into a loop of, this is what's happening to me. I can't believe this is happening. I'm stuck here forever. And I just kept building upon the story. Time is not really a thing within plant medicine, but some hours later, I came out of this experience. And to be honest, that was not something that just taught me the lesson like this. And I moved on and I was at peace and I understood why it was what it was. It was a really challenging ceremony for me to integrate. However, the next time that I worked with ayahuasca, she actually sent me back to that same place. So back to the hell, back to the, emotions and fears and all of these different things coming up. But the key difference with this experience is that instead of identifying with it and instead of starting to create a loop of stories, I just witnessed what was happening. I simply observed and I just watched and I just witnessed, and I didn't label anything. I didn't start to build a story about it. And what was so incredible is that the fear was gone. It was just non-existent. There was no fear. There was no suffering. And so that really taught me, these various ceremonies and these experiences really taught me that hell is truly a creation of the mind. And we create our own hell from the stories that we tell ourselves, from the identities that we create about ourselves and our lives and how we label ourselves. Like, that is what creates the suffering. And I always think of this phrase that pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. And I believe that very, very strongly. I think that it all goes back to this core belief and this core idea that we are not our thoughts. And so if you can take these opportunities whenever you notice yourself in a thought pattern that doesn't feel good to you, it doesn't resonate, or you notice yourself, going down into the loops and creating the stories, just pause and just take a moment, take a deep breath if that feels good to you, but just pause and take a moment to observe and to witness. Again, we don't have to label anything. It's not about judging what's coming up, because it is what it is, and let's allow it to be, but take a step back and observe and allow it to pass, and step back into that seat of consciousness and of awareness. And this is what really allows us to get into the space of consciously responding to what is happening in life rather than unconsciously reacting to everything that's happening around us, right? So this is where meditation can be so powerful, because meditation truly supports this state of witnessing and this state of becoming a conscious observer to the thoughts. So that is my first mindset shift, is I am not my thoughts, I am the witness. And I highly recommend, when you find yourself in that kind of space, to allow yourself to also step into being the witness, being the observer, into that state of awareness, and see what kind of shifts that can make for you in your life. So the second mindset shift that has made a big difference for me is that things are happening for me, not to me. So whatever it is that I am experiencing in my life, it is happening for me. It is not happening to me, no matter what. no matter the challenge, no matter the obstacle, whether I like it or don't like it, whether I'm labeling it good or bad, which again, we try to drop the labels, but we're humans. I really try to remind myself that so often we don't really have the perspective in the moment to recognize what is really happening behind the scenes. And something that might feel bad or challenging or painful right now, I could look back on that in a day, in a month, in a year, in years, who knows? But I could look back on this experience and recognize that it was actually the best thing that could have happened to me. It was actually serving me in a way that I just wasn't able to recognize in that moment. And this has happened to me so many times. You know, part of the reason that I moved to Australia years ago, and this is what sparked my spiritual journey, was that I went through one of those moments of like just shit hit the fan all at the same time. And it truly was just everything bad happening all at once, with my career, with a really challenging relationship that ended, and a lot of other things. And that is for another video. At the time, I genuinely thought that just anything bad that could have happened, it was happening. I didn't know how to feel. I didn't know who I was. I felt so lost. I felt really alone and unsure of myself and unsure of where my life was going moving forward. It felt like the worst thing that had ever happened to me in that moment. But looking back now, like, I would not be where I am today if not for all of that happening, because that was the spark that sent me on my spiritual journey. I needed that. I needed that to catapult me into the change that had to happen, that I'm so grateful happened. And so that's kind of a more extreme version, but these things happen all the time. And I truly, truly believe that it's all about perspective. Sometimes healing, sometimes transformation comes in ways that we just don't understand in the moment. We just don't consciously understand them. And this is where it really comes to a place of trusting, which we'll get into later, so I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but it definitely comes to a space of trusting ourselves, trusting how our life is playing out for us, and again, just recognizing that it's all perspective. And so this mindset shift for me of, things are happening for me, for my greater good, for my growth, for my expansion, for my transformation, for my own joy, they're not happening to me. Things are not here to hurt me or cause me to struggle. It is always about some form of growth or some lesson or some transformation, or just making my way down a path that eventually I will see is so much more beautiful than I could have ever imagined. So that has been a very, very profound shift for me in my mindset. And I invite you to really notice when something might be challenging in your life, and just to remind yourself, it's not to say that you can't feel sad or you can't feel like things are challenging, but to remind yourself that we don't always have the perspective in this moment to see how things are playing out. So have the faith, have the trust, and surrender to the moment, and recognize that you may look back in a month, in a week, in whatever time, in years, and you might realize that this is the best thing that could have ever happened to you. All right, so that does kind of lead into my next mindset shift, which is to trust, to surrender. And I guess that in and of itself doesn't really sound like a mindset shift. So let's say here that the mindset shift in and of itself is more so an understanding that the more I know, the more I recognize that I don't know. And there is actually a profound peace that comes with that understanding. There is so much that we do not know. And it kind of goes beyond our capacity for even recognizing how much that truly is. And it makes me laugh sometimes when I think back, like, especially when I first started my spiritual journey, I just wanted to know everything. Whether it's God, whether it's creator, source, universe, whatever you identify with, I wanted to understand how that greater level of consciousness worked. I wanted to know it all, and what happens after death, and who are we as souls and spirits, and all of these different things. And what I believe in at this point goes so far beyond the Danielle from a couple years ago that I would not recognize this person anymore. Truly, honestly, I would probably think I was crazy, but that's also another video. But I just believe that anything is possible. I mean, I truly believe that anything is possible. I believe that there's so much to this wild, wild universe that we truly cannot fathom, and we cannot explain, and we cannot put to words. I mean, that's another thing, is there are things, especially within meditation and spiritual journeys or plant medicine, that we can witness, that we can experience, but there just aren't words for these things sometimes. I had a plant medicine journey where it was as if I was being shown everything in existence. I mean, the only way that I can explain it is that I was the witness of all that exists all at the same time. And I was seeing it all in one moment, everything. And it was so profoundly beautiful, but at the same time, it was very, very deeply overwhelming. I think that like my human state of consciousness in that moment really wasn't even able to hold that level of infinite consciousness. It was beyond my ability. And it was this struggle between like the profound beauty of it and wanting to see more, but at the same time being like, this is nope. Like this is too much. I cannot do this. I need to take a step back. And ayahuasca actually led me to this space of, it was like a doorway. And I was moving through the doorway and experiencing more and more and more. And she paused at one point and she said, "You are not ready for what comes next." And at that point, at this stage in the game, I was super relieved. And I was like, yep, I'm not ready. I trust you. Like, I need to take a deep breath. I need to sit down. I need some water. Can we put a pause on this? And it was a recognition in that moment that the truth of what really is, like the truth of the entirety of this existence is just so deeply far past what we could ever fathom. And I believe, honestly, that it is beyond what our human bodies even have the capacity to hold. Like, I don't think that we can physically even handle that. And so it, again, was an example of the fact that we don't have to know everything in this moment. And there's actually a beauty that exists in just having faith, having trust in what we don't understand. And this is where, for me, cultivating a spiritual connection, cultivating a connection to something bigger than myself has really brought me a lot of peace, because it allows me to trust and surrender and know that even when there are things that are beyond my level of understanding and what I can really conceptualize with my conscious mind, I just have faith and trust that that's okay. And I don't need to know it all. And maybe that's just not part of this human journey to know it all. I genuinely believe that, as souls, we reunite with a deeper level of consciousness. And in that state, we know it all because we are it all. But within this human experience, I have allowed myself to take a step back and surrender and just recognize that I don't have to have all of the answers. So the next understanding that has really made a difference in my life is the idea that connection is truly essential. It is non-negotiable when it comes to our human happiness, our human experience of joy and peace. I think along with the thoughts, right, the identification with thoughts, a disconnection or just disconnection in general is probably one of the main things that is leading to our experience of unhappiness and dissatisfaction with life. And I truly, truly believe that it is the solution, that whatever form of connection resonates with you. And maybe it is spiritual connection, maybe it's human connection, connection to those that you love. Maybe it's connection with nature, or connection with yourself, connection with your own essence and spirit, and you as a human, and your body as well, because connection to our physical body plays a huge, huge role in our happiness and our healing. So this is really something that I've learned along my path, is that when I notice myself feeling something that feels a little bit out of resonance, maybe it's sadness, maybe it's fear, maybe it's anger, or whatever, challenging emotion is coming up, I really pause and try to cultivate an awareness of where in my life in that moment I am disconnected. And oftentimes it might be just like across the board, I'm just disconnected from it all, right? Spiritually, physically, emotionally, whatever. But there's always some level of disconnect that is happening when I notice myself in those states. And so what I'll do is I'll really pause and ask myself what kind of connection I need that will really support me most in that moment. Is it connecting to something bigger than myself? Maybe I need to meditate, or maybe for someone, they want to pray or, chant mantras if that is within their spiritual tradition. But maybe it is a spiritual connection that you need. Maybe it is a connection with nature. One of the most powerful things for me when I'm feeling off or disconnected is to go outside and take a walk and be in nature and not bring my phone, and just be with the sounds and look around and look at the trees and really soak that up. And that is so, so healing for me. I mean, our disconnect with nature, I definitely believe, is one of the biggest sources of our disconnect in general, and health issues and so many different things. So if you have the opportunity to get out and be in nature, this is a game changer, and I would highly, highly recommend it. So whether it's nature, whether it is loved ones, maybe you need to reach out to family or reach out to friends and spend more time with them, or just have a phone call. Or maybe it is yourself and you need to reconnect with yourself or reconnect to your body. And somatic work, like physical work with our bodies, can sometimes be the most healing thing that we could possibly do. Sometimes we just need to get grounded. So much of this spiritual work, I think, is often taking us like up, really like going outside of ourselves sometimes. And what we might really need in that moment is to really deeply go within ourselves and be grounded and be in our own bodies and feel safe within our own bodies. So how can you do that? Maybe it is through yoga or moving your body in a mindful way, or maybe it's breath work, or maybe it's even eating grounding foods, eating nourishing foods that fuel your body. So find what works for you. But again, this is just something that has really, really supported me, is noticing when I'm feeling off or disconnected, and then getting in touch with myself, asking what I need, and tapping into that level of connection that kind of brings me back to my most fulfilled state and a more peaceful state of experience. All right, last but definitely not least, in fact, maybe this is the number one. I'm not putting any of these at the number one position, but this is super important, and this has been one of the biggest lessons for me. And it is to not take life so seriously, because I promise you, life is not so serious. It is not as serious as we think it is. It is not as serious as we make it out to be, especially when we are if you are someone who is on a healing journey, if you are on a journey of transformation and change and growth and spiritual awakening. It is so easy to get caught up in periods of just constant work. And it's like, we're doing the work, we're doing the healing, we're doing the transformation and the evolution and all of this stuff. And it sometimes can get to a point where it's like, okay, when does it end? Like, when do I get to take a break? And I really believe that it does not have to be constant work. It does not have to be constant healing. And truly, part of the process of healing in and of itself is the integration, is the time of taking a step back and resting and taking a break and allowing yourself to have fun and to just be in the moment and to experience the joy of life and experience the joy of being without having to do anything, without having to change anything. Honestly, having fun is one of the best things that you can do for your own journey, for your own healing, for your own growth. And it's so important to come back to that place, to allow ourselves to play and to have fun and to be childlike again. If you are someone who has been constantly doing the work and doing the healing and the transformation, this is your invitation. This is your permission slip to take a break, to take a deep breath, to allow yourself to rest and pause and just be with life. Just be with your own experience and have fun with it. And don't take life so seriously. Really, the joy is in the everyday experience. The joy is in the little things. Sometimes I think on this spiritual path, we overcomplicate things. We make it a lot harder than it actually needs to be. This is kind of like a topic for another video, but really it can lead into this idea of a spiritual burnout where you have been pushing so hard for so long and doing so much work that you fall into a space of I can't do this anymore, and just complete exhaustion and overwhelm. And that is why it is so important to really allow ourselves to come back to a space of play and joy and fun and ease, because it gets to be easy. It does not have to be hard. And so that has been one of the most profound shifts for me that really I'm always reminding myself of, is we do not have to take life so seriously, because it is not so serious and it gets to be fun. So those are the mindset shifts that have truly made a difference for me in my life, and I think will continue to do so. I really hope this video helped. I hope that something in this resonated for you. If it did, leave a comment and really share, what stood out to you the most, or what are the mindset shifts that have made the biggest difference for you in your life. Let's get this conversation going and really share these different ideas, these different understandings that have transformed our lives in the most impactful ways. And if this video did make a difference for you, if it did inspire you, give it a thumbs up. Please do subscribe. I make new content on this channel every single week. Thank you so much for watching all the way until the end. And until next time, I will see you in the next video.